Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. And another heavyweight news mashup video today, starting with Anthony Joshua, his potential next fight, but also what about Oleksandr Usyk and a Derek Chisora fight? So we'll cover that. So see here on screen. So this is from a journalist, Kubrat Pulev. I'm using this because he's got the two things that I wanted to talk about in two different tweets in one place. So in the United States, where Eddie Hearn is having a matchroom card this weekend, he's spoken to reporters about peripheral issues like Joshua's two mandatories. So as reported by Kubrat Pulev, he says Anthony Joshua will next fight Kubrat Pulev in April, according to Eddie Hearn. Now that Joshua has regained his heavyweight titles, he has to run through mandatory challenges between the IBF's Pulev and WBO's Oleksandr Usyk. Hearn's gut feeling is Pulev will get first crack. And that's not necessarily a massive shock in itself, because that is what we have been hearing, that Pulev would probably be first, but this is more sort of confirmation that this is pretty much locked in, but they need to work out the details of a step aside or some sort of order between the IBF and WBO, because right now you have both organizations having called their mandatories, ordering Joshua to fight them. Both have given Joshua 30 days to negotiate with the mandatory challenges. And so that period is up in early January. But it seemingly looks like, because Anthony Joshua has made no secret, he doesn't want to give up a belt. He wants to keep them together. So then they need to come to some sort of deal. And this is the next piece that we'll get to. So he says Oleksandr Usyk will fight Derek Chisora on March 7 if Anthony Joshua has to do his IBF mandatory with Kubrat Pulev first. And that's Eddie Hearn telling him that. Usyk is the WBO mandatory for Joshua. Hearn said Joshua has no intentions of vacating any of his 4 heavyweight titles. But some of this is easier said than done, because we have to remember Oleksandr Usyk is only co-promoted by Eddie Hearn. So maybe Team Usyk doesn't necessarily want to go along exactly with Joshua's plans, because if given the chance and there's an opportunity to get Joshua stripped, wouldn't Usyk want to face someone maybe who's a little less dangerous than Anthony Joshua, well, perceived to be? So I don't know if it's as clear as just sort of saying one will be after the other, but only time will tell on that one. But in respect of if it does go in the order and the sort of way that Joshua and Hearn want it to go, or at least this is Joshua ordering Eddie Hearn, this is how I want it, then Usyk would have to wait. And if he waits, it looks like Derek Chisora a fight on March 7th. Presumably the WBO mandatory spot would be up on the line then. But also that fight would give Oleksandr Usyk a very good warm-up ahead of any title shot with Joshua. Obviously he has to win it, and if he looks good in that one, that will help build some hype and buzz to a big fight at the back end of 2020 with Joshua. So that could serve, many purposes there. Derek Chisora, he's a tough customer. He will look to upset Oleksandr Usyk. I think many would pick Usyk to win. Derek Chisora has had a bit of a career renaissance in the past 12 to 18 months, but that there could be a good fight, a good profile builder for Oleksandr Usyk. The Chaz Witherspoon fight didn't exactly build him any more profile or get him any more fans, and a lot of people have been looking at that going, if Chaz Witherspoon can touch up Oleksandr Usyk, what can someone else like a Derek Chisora do? But that was his first fight for about a year or so he did look a little bit ring rusty in there. But if they do make that fight, Derek Chisora and Oleksandr Usyk for March 7th, no doubt in the UK and probably on pay-per-view. And that would be a very stern test for Oleksandr Usyk, but one I believe he probably can win and should win. Okay, moving on. One of the barriers to an undisputed fight, an eventual undisputed fight, seemingly has been removed. So also talking to reporters in the United States, Eddie Hearn talking to BoxingScene.com here, he said that 50-50 could be on the table now for either Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua. Hearn says, a lot has changed. Let's be honest, a year ago, Fury and Wilder were making a 10th or a 15th of what Joshua was making. And Joshua was undefeated. He held 4 belts. He was the clear king of the division. And both of these guys were offered 60-40, which I thought was the most generous deal that I thought they could be offered. And they both wanted 50-50. And I said, sorry, no. Fast forward 12 months and you've got Joshua losing, but Joshua recaptured the belts. And I think that took him to a new level. But Fury and Wilder have fought each other. Their profiles have both considerably raised in the US. I can badmouth people, but it comes with facts. So when things have changed, I'm big enough to say things have changed, and things have changed. You have Fury doing WWE. You have Fury beating Wilder the first time out. You have Wilder knocking out Ortiz in Brazil and looking sensational. In my opinion, I still don't necessarily think they're worth 50-50, but now I can see the argument, and it's going to get to a stage where they will only take a fight if it's 50-50. And that's an AJ decision. That's not an Eddie Hearn decision. I don't go in there and say, this is how it's going to be. It's 50-50 and it's done. I'll tell AJ, this is the only way that you'll make this fight, is if you give them 50-50. What do you want to do? And in my opinion, I don't want to put words in his mouth because AJ is his own boss, but he wants those fights so badly, that will probably be the deal. Especially the winner of that fight, Wilder Fury, does deserve the 50-50, but they never did at the time. It wasn't even close back then, but things change. So Eddie Hearn, a monumental shift in position on the issue of a 50-50 split for an undisputed fight. Initially, it started off as a flat fee to Wilder and then increased to a percentage split, eventually getting to 60-40. But now, potentially, and remember, we're still talking the best part of a year away at least, maybe 50-50 will be on the table. And I said in a recent video, because Anthony Joshua said he wants Undisputed, that's what he's in it for, I said there were a number of barriers to that fight. And Eddie Hearn and the money offering of not doing a 50-50 was a part of it. But clearly the position has shifted, and I think for the better, because this increases my optimism that an eventual undisputed fight can happen, whoever has the belt. So we'll see where this goes, but this is actually encouraging news, and I wasn't sure that we'd ever hear this. And especially after his recent win over Andy Ruiz Jr., taking home a massive payday, somewhere around $80 million reportedly. Would that still dwarf in Joshua's mind, not giving a 50-50 split? Ultimately, it's over to him, but Eddie Hearn saying these things, thawing in public on the stance of a 50-50 and saying, actually, right now, that probably is something we can do. I like what I'm hearing. How about you? Frank Warren, Daniel Dubois' promoter, is defending Dubois' opposition in this past year. He faces Kyotaru Fujimoto this weekend. He says, well, let's examine the records of Daniel's last 5 opponents, including Fujimoto. Between them, before facing our man, they had suffered just 7 defeats from a combined total of 86 fights. And former world title challenger Razvan Kijano accounts for 5 of them. Nathan Gorman and Ebenezer Tete were undefeated, with Richard Lartey and Fujimoto having a single defeat on their card. They can all clearly punch a bit too, having 60 KOs between them. Whoever goes in with Daniel is going to be right up against it if he connects with their chin. It doesn't matter who they are. Daniel's ledger stands up to scrutiny, and the fact he already has 8 titles to his name is testament to this. On Saturday, the WBC have seen fit to award their silver title to the fight alongside the WBO international title Daniel already holds, and these belts are what really transforms top prospects into true contenders. So I'll leave it there, and if you want to peruse through the whole column from Frank Warren at frankwarren.com, I get what he's saying in terms of the raw numbers, 86 wins versus 7 defeats for the opponents of Daniel Dubois this year, but if you dig into it, some of these guys like Tete and Fujimoto have not been facing anyone really of note at all in years. So I do think Frank Warren's dancing on the head of a pin a little bit in trying to big up the records and some of these opponents. But the Kijano win, it was a good win at the time that Dubois fought him. Also, a very good win against Nathan Gorman, but these other guys with padded records, yet not so much for me. But yeah, make of it what you will on this, but Daniel Dubois is clearly a very good prospect, a blue chip prospect, one of the best rising prospects in the heavyweight division right now. I'm not sure Warren needs to come out so publicly trying to defend the opposition. He just has to step it up in 2020. It's my view on it. Kubrat Pulev, the IBF mandatory challenger, has been promoted to a lieutenant in the Bulgarian army. So he shared this on his social media. You can see here on screen, this is from the ceremony. And then a day later, he's roaming the halls at the Ministry of Defense in Bulgaria. So not only waiting for his title shot, but having some out-of-the-ring success and a promotion in the Bulgarian army. So yeah, good on him, I guess. And looking at the schedule this weekend, not a lot on there besides obviously Daniel Daniel Dubois is fighting. Also, you have F.A. Ajagba. He is going to be back against Iago Kaladze, two hot prospects who are looking to add some more knockouts to their records. But also, apart from that, you have the return of Christian Hammer. So he was originally meant to be fighting against Tony Yoka this month, but that fell apart. It may get rescheduled. We'll have to wait and see. But he is fighting in Germany against Saul Farah, who has got a record of 71 wins and 24 losses with 3 draws. Also on the same card is Jack Mulawai, who recently lost to Frank Sanchez-Foray, a heavyweight prospect. He is facing Paul Sowick, a 3-4 journeyman. But apart from that, it's looking a little bit lean this weekend and for the rest of the year. But I guess, only 10 or 11 days yet left in the year. Not too surprising, I guess. But what do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.